Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. I lifted my phone to film the countdown and froze. My thumb hovered over the record button like it weighed 100 pounds. My name is Jake. I was 36 that night. Two kids bounced on the couch behind me yelling for the volume. My wife was not there and the clock screamed 11:58. "Turn it up, Dad." Our son leaned over the armrest and jabbed the remote toward me. Our daughter had one hand in a bowl of candy, eyes glued ahead. Nobody asked why my phone kept lighting up on the table. I watched her name flash again and felt my stomach twist hard. 40 minutes earlier she had texted helping a friend, running late. I read that line again while the crowd on TV roared. A second bubble followed almost right away, short and too neat. "Start without me if I miss it, love you." Now those words looked fake, like a template someone pasted in. "Where is she?" My daughter's voice came out thin under the shouting on the broadcast. "She promised hats and that stupid horn thing." She nudged my leg like I could pull Mom out of my pocket. I forced a smile that felt stapled on my face. "Mom's stuck helping out, she'll be home soon." The lie slid out too smooth, like I had practiced it. My son frowned at the TV, then at the empty spot beside me. "Why tonight though?" That question hit harder than anything playing through the speakers. The timer on the screen ticked down from 90 seconds. I grabbed 3 plastic cups, filled them at the sink, hands trembling. "Sparkling juice is ready, front row for the big moment." I tried to sound upbeat, maybe even a little sarcastic. Inside I just wanted to hit call and not stop. I tapped her name again instead. The ringtone cut off after 2 beats and went straight to voicemail. The automated greeting sounded weirdly cheerful, like it mocked me. I hung up without speaking because I knew my voice would crack. A small voice behind me whispered that something was not right. I texted instead. "Everything okay, kids waiting, you close." Looking at that chat now, I can hear how careful I was. No anger, just this tight, polite concern that makes me cringe. Like I was afraid to sound upset with my own wife. "Dad, it's starting." My son grabbed my sleeve and hauled me back to the couch. The crowd on TV already shouted the last 30 seconds together. He shoved a cup into my free hand like a baton. I put the phone face down and lied to myself on purpose. For a second I told myself she would burst through the door. Coat half on, hair a mess, apologizing while the kids screamed. I pictured it so clearly that I almost believed it. 20 seconds. I still waited for the sound of the key in the lock. 10, 9, 8. Both kids yelled with the crowd, lungs going full blast. I tried to match their energy and only managed a shaky cheer. I held my cup up between us like a shield. Behind the noise there was this heavy quiet in my chest. 3, 2, 1. Confetti on the screen, strangers kissing, fireworks everywhere. My son threw his arms around my waist and squeezed hard. My daughter kissed my cheek and laughed into my neck. I felt stupid tears press up because she should have been there. "Happy New Year, Daddy." She clinked her cup against mine, juice sloshing over our fingers. "Can we call Mom now?" The question dropped fast, no space to dodge it. I swallowed and reached for the phone like it might bite. "Let's try her." I hit video call and turned the screen toward them. The ringing tone cut through the room louder than the TV. 1 ring, 2, 3, 4. The call dropped to voicemail again like it fell off a cliff. My son's shoulders sagged. "She forgot." He said it flat, not even mad, which somehow hurt worse. "She didn't forget," I answered too quickly. The defensive edge in my own voice made me want to rewind. I called again right away, even though I knew it looked desperate. My daughter climbed onto my lap and pressed her ear to my chest. "She's probably driving," I muttered, mostly to myself. Maybe her phone died or something. Every excuse sounded thin even as I stacked them up. The third call went straight to voicemail without ringing. That tiny change punched a hole in all my explanations. Maybe her battery really did go out, I pushed again. My son turned the volume back up like he was done trying. "On-screen people kiss like this was the perfect night." "Hey, how about games?" I said, forcing brightness into each word. "We do our New Year challenge thing, winner gets to pick breakfast." That usually got them hype fast, because silly little traditions matter. Tonight they just nodded smaller, like someone had let the air out. I felt the first real crack in my happy dad act right then. We started the timer app we used for dumb mini contests. Balance on one leg, hold your breath, who can stay quiet longest. Our daughter laughed again during the second round, actual laughter this time. My son set up and tried to beat her, face suddenly competitive. For a few minutes I let myself sink into that distraction. They both crashed hard after the sugar and the excitement dipped. I told them we'd put the special breakfast on hold till Mom returned. They accepted that, which scared me more than if they fought it. Like this kind of disappointment already fit into their world. I walked them down the hallway feeling twice my real age. In his room, my son paused before climbing into bed. "Do you think she likes New Year stuff at all?" he asked. He stared at the ceiling instead of looking at me. "I mean, she always has a reason." His voice broke on the last word, thin and sharp. I tucked him in and joked about him beating me at our games. He smiled without much energy and rolled toward the wall. "Wake me if she comes home," he murmured. That line stuck in my head like a nail. I promised I would and hoped I was not lying again. My daughter clung to my neck in her room. "Can you stay till I fall asleep?" she whispered. I sat on the edge of her bed and counted slow breaths. Her fingers twisted the hem of my sleeve until they finally loosened. When she let go, I felt that space like an actual bruise. The house went quiet in that heavy way after the kids settle. TV off, lights down, just the hum of everything running without effort. I checked the time, 1:23. No new notifications. Her name sat near the top of the screen like a dare. I opened our chat again and scrolled to the message from earlier. "Helping a friend might be late, do not wait up." That last line caught my eye now in a new way. I had not seen it before, or maybe I ignored it. Either way, it landed different with the house empty around me. I typed deleted, then typed again. "Kids missed you tonight." I added a heart, stared at it, then erased it. Finally I sent just "you okay?" The little delivered stamp appeared and nothing else followed. I walked to the front door and checked the lock twice. Not because of safety, but because I wanted some control. Through the narrow window I could see the quiet street. A rideshare car rolled past, someone laughing inside, free of my life. I watched its taillights fade and felt an ugly flicker of envy. The TV stayed off, but I still saw the countdown numbers in my head. 10 all the way down to 1, replaying in a loop. I kept picturing that empty space on the couch beside us. It was like somebody had cut her shape out with scissors. I finally sat down there anyway, just to feel how wrong it felt. Back then, I told myself I was overthinking the whole thing. People get stuck helping friends, stuff happens, timing blows up. That was the story I forced into place and nailed shut. Now writing this, I see how loud that night really was. The silence around her absence had been screaming from the start. The lock turned and I shot off the couch. My neck screamed from sleeping half upright and my heart went crazy. For a second I honestly thought maybe I dreamed the whole night. Then the door opened and she stepped inside like it was any morning. Her shoes came off fast and landed in a little heap near the mat. She froze when she saw me standing there, phone in my hand. "Oh, you're up." Her voice tried for casual and landed somewhere tight and careful. I checked the time over her shoulder and felt my jaw clench. A little after 6. The sky outside still looked like it had no idea what day it was. "You made it," I said, and even I could hear the edge. She dropped her bag on the chair and stretched her arms wide. "Happy New Year." She walked straight past me and headed down the hall. "Where are my babies? They awake?" Our daughter bolted out of her room before I could answer. "Mom." She threw herself at her waist so hard they both stumbled. I waited and you missed the countdown. My wife crouched and held her close a little too long. I know, I am so sorry, it was crazy." She brushed hair back from our daughter's face and kissed her forehead. "Tell me everything I missed. Did you guys scream the numbers?" Our son appeared behind them, rubbing his eyes with one fist. He did not run to her, not right away. He just stared like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "Were you with your friend all night?" he asked, voice rough. She looked up quick at that word, then back at him. "Yeah, she had a really bad night, long story." No details. Just that neat sentence dropped in like a bandage. I watched a small tremor pass through our son's shoulders. He crossed his arms and leaned on the doorframe. You missed the toast. The way he said it made it sound like more than juice in plastic cups. I know I did. She stood and pulled him in even though he barely moved. How many games did you beat Dad in? I need to know. She tried to turn it into a joke and he let her, kind of. Her eyes met mine over his head for a split second. That glank. He held an entire conversation we did not have. Don't blow this up in front of them. That is what I heard even though she said nothing. Go start cartoons, I told the kids. I'll bring breakfast in a minute. They took off toward the living room like someone released a spring. Their voices faded down the hall and left us in a tight bubble. She exhaled and sagged against the wall like she had been holding herself up. That was a mess, she muttered, rubbing both hands over her face. I tried to get back sooner, it just kept getting worse. The way she piled the words made my skin prickle. What happened exactly? I kept my tone low because the kids were still within earshot. Last I heard you were helping out and maybe late. Her story needed to fit that line or I knew I would lose it. She had this panic thing, it came out of nowhere. She moved into the kitchen and reached for a glass with automatic motions. I ended up driving her to urgent care and waiting, it took forever. She drank half the water in one go and watched me over the rim. Urgent care. That part was new. I replayed her text in my head and did not hear any hospital in it. Which one did you take her to? I asked like it was small talk. She answered almost too fast. The one near the malls. Her eyes dropped for a blink then snapped back up. You know the one, we went there that time with your ankle. I felt my jaw tighten again because I knew that location. It was in the opposite direction from downtown and from her work. So you were there all night. I tried to keep the question neutral but my pulse thudded loud. Pretty much paperwork waiting for test stuff sitting in chairs. She shrugged one shoulder like the whole night was just boredom. At one point I thought about coming home and then going back. She laughed once short and dry, but that felt stupid. What I hate most is that part of me nodded along. Hospitals eat time. You walk in and lose hours without clocking it. That logic slid into place even while something in me resisted. The kids yelled from the living room about cereal. She used the distraction like a lifeline and stepped around me. I will get them set up, she tossed over her shoulder. I watched her go and noticed a slight wobble in her walk. Not drunk, not anymore. More like someone who had been up all night around harsh air and stress. She leaned down to kiss their heads and flopped beside them on the floor. From where I stood, she looked almost normal, like a mom who just had a long shift. I moved around the kitchen on autopilot. Eggs, bread, whatever I could grab without thinking too hard. Every motion kept bumping against that missing sound from the night. No key turning. No bag dropping at midnight when it should have. If you asked me right then, I would have said I still believed her. Mostly. Enough to function. Enough to not burn the whole morning down in front of the kids. Later, after cartoons and breakfast and endless chatter about resolutions, she crashed. Wake me if they try to climb the roof or something. She touched my arm as she passed me and headed for the bedroom. Her hand was warm, familiar, and for a second I wanted to let everything go. The house quieted again once the kids got absorbed into some game. I picked up cups, wiped the counter, loaded the dishwasher. Busy hands helped shut up my brain for a while. That worked until my phone buzzed with that little notification ping. New email. Join account. Subject line mentioned a ride service and a dollar amount. At first I almost deleted it without reading because New Year promos flood your inbox. Something tugged at me though. I opened it and felt my throat go dry halfway through the first line. Your trip is complete. Under that, pickup time, drop-off time, locations, price. The pickup stamped right around 11. The drop-off hit just after midnight. The start point sat downtown near the bars and hotels. The end point landed at an address I did not recognize at all. It was not near the mall. It was not near any urgent care I knew. I stared at that address as my mind tried to warp the map. No matter how I twisted it, the pieces refused to lock together. I clicked the little map link without thinking. A small preview popped up with a pin over a high-rise cluster. Office towers, condos, places we joked about never affording. Definitely not a clinic with flickering lights and plastic chairs. My chest buzzed like I had downed 5 energy drinks at once. I read the route again from start to finish, as if it might change. Downtown pickup. Luxury building drop-off. No mention of going anywhere near the spot she named. Maybe they transferred her friend. Maybe they called another car. Maybe her phone linked by mistake. I stacked those maybes like sandbags in my head and watched them leak. In the living room, our son laughed at something on the screen. The sound felt far away. I forwarded the receipt to my own email without fully deciding why. Just a reflex, like tucking a clue into my pocket. I walked to the bedroom and paused in the doorway. She lay on her side on top of the blanket, still in yesterday's clothes. Her face looked wiped out, and for 1 second sympathy shot through me. You do not fake that kind of exhaustion easily, my brain insisted. Her phone rested near her hand on the nightstand. I stared at it longer than I should have. All I had to do was reach and tap the screen. All the answers could be sitting behind a lock screen and a swipe. I backed away instead. Even now I am not sure if that was respect or fear. If I found nothing, I would be the crazy paranoid husband. If I found something, everything would blow up before I was ready. When she woke up a couple hours later, I was chopping fruit. She shuffled and scratching her arm and yawning. What time is it? I feel like I slept for 10 years. She poured herself coffee and watched me over the rim again. How is your friend? I asked, keeping my eyes on the cutting board. The word felt heavy in my mouth. She okay now? I tried to sound neutral and landed somewhere between stiff and polite. Yeah, better. They gave her something to calm her down. She leaned on the counter and rubbed her temples. I am just wiped. That kind of night takes everything out of you. Her shoulders slumped in this practiced way that invited sympathy. What did they say it was? The question slipped out before I could stop it. At the clinic, I added quickly, pretending I remembered the place wrong. Her fingers drummed once, then stilled. They are not sure, could be stress or something with her heart. She gave a little helpless shrug and looked toward the living room. I do not want to get into her private stuff, you know. That shield landed between us, neat and convenient. Did you drive her home after? I asked, because the ride email burned my brain. She took a long sip of coffee before answering. No, she got another ride. One of her neighbors picked her up. She did not look at me during that line. I watched a droplet slide down the outside of her mug and hit the counter. The smallest things stand out when you are trying not to explode. That is good, I managed. My mind screamed that the receipt in my inbox told a different story. The kids burst in then with their argument about which movie to watch. She latched onto that distraction like it was oxygen. I will help you pick, she told them, setting her cup down. To them, she looked like the same parent who forgot a holiday and felt bad. I stood alone in the kitchen for a second after they left. My pulse thudded in my ears and my palms felt damp. I opened my email again to make sure I had not imagined the whole thing. The trip details stared back like a digital receipt from another life. Back then I did not call her out. Not on the address, not on the timeline, not on the neighbor that suddenly existed. I told myself it could all still be some messy overlapping chain of events. I told myself families survive worse misunderstandings than one strange ride. Here is the part that still stings. Somewhere under all that mental patchwork, a quiet thought formed. If this is nothing, it will fade. If it is something, this is the first breadcrumb. I clicked star on that email and felt like I had just started a file on my own marriage. Her tablet rattled against the counter and I nearly flinched. Water was running in the bathroom and the kids were gone. The buzz kept going in short bursts like it was urgent. I wiped my hands and walked over before it woke everyone. I meant to just flip it face down and walk away. That was the honest plan, at least for the first second. Before I touched it, the screen lit up on its own. A preview banner slid across the top, just enough to ruin everything. Still thinking about last night. That line blinked at me with a little heart next to it. No name I recognized, just a single letter and a photo blur. My fingers stopped a hair from the edge of the tablet and shook. I could have backed away right there and kept my doubts. I could have told myself it was some group chat joke. Instead, I tapped the screen like my hand moved without permission. The notification opened the whole messaging app with that thread right on top. Her passcode was the same 4 digits we always used for everything. My thumb entered them before my brain finished arguing with itself. The conversation opened midstream, bubbles stacked like dominoes. The newest message slid in again while I stared at the screen. Still thinking about last night. Under that, a message from her with a little laughing emoji. Stop, I can still barely walk. I read that line twice while my chest tried to remember how breathing worked. I scrolled up with my knuckles slow and clumsy. More messages from earlier that day filled the screen like a script. Ho. W was your new year with the family, he had written. Worth skipping some TV countdown with the kids, she had answered. That sentence punched straight through whatever excuses I had left. Not the cheating part, not yet, not fully. The way our children got reduced to background noise in one line. My hand tightened around the tablet until my thumb hurt. He had sent fireworks icons and a joke about our own ball drop. My eyes caught on that and everything inside me lurched sideways. I heard the broadcast countdown in my head all over again. Except now I saw her in some stranger's bed while our kids yelled. Water shut off down the hall and pipes ticked in the walls. I froze like a kid caught with something from the top shelf. Part of me wanted to slam the tablet down and pretend. Another part whispered that I would never get this window again. I scrolled farther, fingers moving faster now that the seal was broken. Messages from the afternoon before New Year lined up in neat rows. Him, you sure you can sneak out tonight? Her, already have my cover story, emergency with a friend. I had to stop and steady myself against the counter with my free hand. Reading that felt like watching someone forge my signature in real time. I could almost see her typing while I wrestled kids into pajamas. I remember thinking back then that her friend always needed something. I kept going because at that point stopping felt worse. Plans piled up in the chat like a blueprint of betrayal. Meet time. Rideshare details. Hotel name shortened into a cute nickname I recognized from ads. When I hit the part that matched the night exactly, my vision blurred. Her message right before midnight lived there in plain text. Ball is dropping soon, you better make it worth the trouble. His response followed with a gross winking face and way too much confidence. I will spare you the explicit parts, though they carved into me. They talked about positions and preferences and things I never heard from her. It was not just physical either, which somehow cut even deeper. He wrote about how she deserved better than just being a mom. My throat tightened so much I thought I might throw up. They were not only sleeping together, they were rewriting my whole life. Her texts from that night showed zero hesitation, zero conflict. While I tried to keep 2 kids from crying, she text flirted about room service. I opened the little menu and hit the option to save images. The tablet took quick captures of each screen with a muted sound. I moved fast, saving every part where they mentioned that night. My fingertip burned from how hard I pressed the glass. It felt disgusting, building a record like that behind her back. I knew I had crossed a line that you cannot uncross. But honestly, I also knew I would get gaslit without proof. I needed something solid I could look at when she started crying. New bubbles popped up while I still had the device in my grip. I watched them appear one after another like he was right there. Counting hours till we can do that again. Still taste you. My stomach twisted so hard I had to swallow a groan. The bathroom door clicked and her footsteps moved toward the kitchen. I almost dropped the tablet into the sink from pure panic. Instead, I cleared the app with a swipe and locked the screen. By the time she turned the corner, it rested exactly where she left it. Hey, you still on dish duty, she joked as she grabbed a towel. I kept my back half turned, hands buried in soapy water. Yeah, almost done. My voice sounded steady to my own ears, which scared me. She picked up the tablet and checked the time with a quick glance. Her thumb moved over the screen, and for a heartbeat I stopped breathing. If she saw the recent app list, I was finished. Instead, she just opened a recipe and leaned against the counter. You okay? She asked after a second. I realized I was scrubbing the same plate over and over. Fine, just tired. The word felt like the biggest understatement I had ever used. She moved closer and bumped her shoulder into my arm. You were heroic on New Year, she teased, trying to lighten the mood. Next time I owe you the whole night off. I flinched so hard the dish slipped and clattered in the sink. She laughed and kissed my cheek, then wandered back to the kids. The smell of her shampoo drifted behind her and turned my stomach. I stood at the sink with my hands underwater and no feeling in them. I knew in that quiet that nothing about my life looked the same. Later that night, once everyone slept, I pulled my own phone out. I opened the photo folder where the tablet backups now lived. Each image carried that ridiculous little timestamp from the capture. I zoomed in on the line about just being a mom and stopped. Looking at it from a distance felt even worse than reading it live. It was like examining a crime scene photo of my own house. I could see the THM of their connection and the timing. Hours of back and forth that I never knew existed. I know some people would have confronted right away, maybe mid-shower. I replayed that option in my head while the ceiling fan hummed. Kick the door open. Throw the tablet onto the tile. Start yelling questions with no plan for the answers. The truth is I backed down, which still bugs me. I told myself I needed to be smart and calm. I told myself the kids did not deserve chaos because I was furious. Underneath that, a smaller truth whispered that I wanted the whole picture. I started checking her devices whenever the chance came up. Not constantly, not like a spy thriller, just quiet little peeks. Each time I felt disgusting and also wired, heart roaring in my ears. Each time I found another flirty line, another plan, another tiny cut. That first afternoon with the tablet was the pivot though. Before that I had suspicions and a suspicious ride receipt. After that I had sentences you cannot explain away with traffic. I had written proof that on New Year my wife was someone else entirely. I slid my phone onto the table between us and her face froze. The screen lit up with the first screenshot like a slap in the dark. She stared for a second, then reached for it with a slow hand. Where did you get this? Her voice came out thin and careful. The kids had finally knocked out after a movie marathon and sugar crash. The dishwasher hummed in the background like it wanted no part of this. I had waited all day for that moment, stomach tight the whole time. By then I already knew if I backed off again, I would lose my mind. Look at it, I said, keeping my hands under the table so she could not see them shake. Her eyes dropped to the screen and grew flat and distant. The message thread stared up at both of us, all the filth and jokes and timelines. She blinked twice like she could maybe erase it by not focusing too hard. That is private, she muttered, shoulders squaring. Yeah, I got that part, I answered, my voice lower than I meant. So who is he? She exhaled through her nose, long and annoyed, like I had caught her on some minor thing. He is just a guy from work, she said, tapping her finger next to his name. We talk, it got stupid, we were messing around in chat. Her jaw jutted out in this stubborn way that used to be almost cute. I am allowed to talk to people, you know. Read the next one, I told her, pushing the phone closer. She glanced down and flinched at the line about her barely walking. I watched that reaction like a referee watching a slow replay. This is not just talking, I added, each word clipped. She closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them again slower. Okay, it went too far, I own that, she whispered, fingers curling into her palms. But it was online, it was fantasy, I did not actually do anything. She looked at me with this pleading tilt, like maybe I would grab that exit for her. My thumb swiped to the screenshot with the hotel nickname and room joke. Explain this fantasy booking, I said, trying to keep my breathing steady. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again, no sound for a full heartbeat. The flush rose up her neck and she stared at the table instead of the screen. That was one time, she blurted finally, words rushing together. It was stupid, I freaked out right after, it did not mean anything. Her hand went to her hair, tugging the ends like she needed pain to anchor herself. I was drunk and mad and just reckless. Which time, I asked, even though I already knew the answer. She swallowed hard and looked at the edge of the table. New Year's, she whispered, barely louder than a breath. My ears rang like someone had fired a gun indoors. For a second I just watched her mouth move and no sound registered. Every part of that night lined up against her admission in my head. Missing midnight, silent phone, that rideshare notice with the tower address. The picture finally snapped into one ugly hole, and it almost knocked me sideways. I was here pouring fake champagne for our children, I said slowly. And you were booking a room with him. My chair scraped the floor as I leaned forward, pulse pounding. Tell me every part, do not shorten it, do not soften it. She shook her head fast, eyes already wet. I cannot do all the details, it will just destroy you, she said, voice cracking. You already destroyed me, I snapped louder than I meant. We both froze and glanced toward the hallway where the kids slept. Silence stretched between us, thick and hot. She wiped her face with the back of her hand like she was angry at the tears. Fine, she breathed, we met downtown, we had drinks, we went upstairs. Each sentence landed dull, like she was reading a grocery list. How long has this been happening? I asked, not letting her stop there. Her gaze flicked left, then right, searching for some safe number. It was just tea. Hat night, she said first, too quick, too clean. I did not even respond, I just turned the phone and brought up older dates. The thread from months before glowed on the screen between us. Meetups hinted at, inside jokes about early checkout. Little references to last time that did not fit a one-night mistake. She covered her mouth for a heartbeat, then dropped her hand like it weighed too much. Okay, not just that night, she admitted, staring at the wall now. Twice. The word sounded tiny and pathetic in the space between us. I waited because I already recognized the pattern of a slow confession. My silence worked better than yelling ever could have. She rubbed her forehead like it hurt to think. More than twice, she corrected, voice rough. It started a while before New Year and I did not stop it. There it was. The part where my stomach felt like someone grabbed it and twisted. You have been sleeping with him for months, I said, each syllable heavy. While eating dinner with us, while kissing our kids goodnight. She winced like each example hit her directly. It was not constant, it was episodic, she tried, picking at a nail. That does not make it better, I shot back, and she knew it. Her shoulders curled in like she wanted to fold herself into something smaller. I felt invisible, she blurted suddenly, words tumbling over each other. I felt like a maid, a chauffeur, a calendar, nothing else. Her hands moved wildly now, drawing empty shapes over the table. He noticed me, he looked at me like I still mattered. And that justifies ditching your family on New Year, I asked. You left 2 children staring at a screen waiting for you. My throat burned as that image flashed back full force. You picked him over them on purpose. She shook her head hard, tears spilling faster now. I was not thinking about the time, I swear I lost track, she insisted. We planned to meet for a little while and it stretched longer. Her fingers dug into her own arms so deep they left marks. Did you think about them at all? I pushed, my voice low again. At any point while you were in that room with him? She opened her mouth, closed it, then gave this tiny nod. Once, she whispered, when I saw the clock and I still stayed. That line cut straight through any fragile sympathy I had left. At least she did not try to dress it up. At least she admitted the ugliest part out loud. I still felt something inside me cave in on itself. Did you use protection? I asked, switching tracks because fear shoved itself forward. She blinked, thrown by the change, then nodded quickly. Every time, she answered, almost grateful for a question with a factual answer. I stared her down until I believed she would not risk lying on that. Have you seen a doctor since this started? I pressed, hand flat on the table. Her lips parted, hesitation right there in her eyes. Not yet, she murmured, I did not think that far. A fresh wave of anger rushed through me so hard my fingertips tingled. You did not think that far while sleeping with someone else, I said. You still came home and climbed into bed with me. That reality settled between us like a live wire. I pulled my hand back because it actually felt like my skin buzzed. She reached toward me then stopped halfway, fingers curling back. I know I do not deserve any grace here, she said, voice shaking. I know this is monstrous, I am not asking you to pretend it is small. Her eyes locked on mine, wide and desperate. I am asking you not to quit on us tonight. I wanted to scream that there was no us after that night. I wanted to walk out, slam the door, and let her explain everything alone. Instead, I pictured our kids waking up in the morning to an empty house. Their little faces trying to make sense of suitcases and silence. "We are getting a therapist," I said, words coming out like a verdict. "You cut him out completely, you show me everything, you do tests." Each demand stacked up higher than the last, but I did not back down. "If you slip once, if I see anything off, I am done." She nodded so fast I wondered if she even heard each condition. "I will block him, I will change jobs, I will do whatever," she rushed out. "Just do not blow our family up over my worst decisions." That line stung because it tried to spread the blast back onto me. "I did not blow anything up," I answered, leaning closer, eyes locked on hers. "You lit the fuse and walked away from the house." I could feel my pulse in my teeth, that is how wound up I was. "And now you are asking me to hold the wreckage together for everyone." She crumpled then, shoulders shaking, forehead on her arms. The sound that came out of her barely sounded human. I watched her fall apart, and some stupid part of me still wanted to comfort her. Another part wanted to stand and leave her at that table forever. I did neither. I just sat there, hands gripping tea. He edged so hard my knuckles hurt. The proof lay between us on the glowing screen, impossible to ignore now. That was the night I stopped guessing and heard every rotten detail from her own mouth. I pushed the clipboard back across the tiny table and stared at her. The therapist had asked what we wanted from counseling, and my mind went blank. Across from me, my wife twisted her wedding band in frantic little circles. "I want our family," she whispered before I could get a single word out. "I want the truth," I answered, and it came out rougher than planned. The therapist glanced between us like she had heard that exact split 100 times. "Then we start with ground rules," she said, folding her hands in front of her. "That means both of you give up some control, not just him." I pulled my phone from my pocket and slid it toward the middle. "Everything is open," I said, trying to sound firm instead of terrified. "Passwords, messages, all of it, if we are doing this for real." My wife nodded fast like she was afraid I might snatch the offer back. She dug for her own phone and placed it beside mine without looking up. "I already blocked him," she said, voice shaking as she unlocked the screen. The therapist asked her to show the block list and she did. I watched his name appear with that little red icon and felt almost nothing. "Deleting is not the same as healing," the therapist said, eyes on both of us. "But transparency matters right now, so you start there and build outward." She had my wife hand me the phone and asked me to scroll the thread. The history was gone, just an empty chat window where months of lies had lived. Seeing that blank space did not calm me, it rattled me harder. It proved how easily a whole double life could vanish in one swipe. I handed the device back and clasped my hands together to stop the shaking. "Location sharing stays on at all times," I added, staring straight at the therapist. "That is a request, not a sentence," she replied, holding my gaze. "Can you do that willingly?" she asked my wife, tilting her head. My wife nodded again, jaw clenched so tight the muscles jumped. "If that is what rebuilding looks like, then yes," she answered, barely above a whisper. We left that first session with a list in my notes app. No contact with him, no private accounts, no secret meetups. Weekly counseling, individual and together, plus a medical check for both of us. It felt less like saving a marriage and more like writing probation terms. Back home, we sat side by side on the couch, installing tracking and logins. She called the kids in and told them we were working on better family habits. They watched us link phones and calendars with curious, worried eyes. I could feel our son studying my face like he was trying to read a scoreboard. That first week she overcorrected on everything, and it drove me insane. Every text included a photo of where she stood and what she held. She called on her breaks and let me hear background noise like it proved something. Part of me needed that stream and another part felt smothered by it. At work I checked the shared location bubble way more than I admit. If it lagged for more than a minute, my pulse spiked straight up. I zoomed in on parking lots and street names like a detective with no training. By lunch, I usually hated myself for how deep into it I had gone. In the second counseling session, the therapist hit us with the hard one. "What does forgiveness actually mean for you?" she asked, looking at me. "I do not know yet," I answered after a long, quiet stretch. I just know pretending I already have it will make me explode. My wife wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and stared at the floor. How long am I supposed to live like a criminal? She asked, voice raw. Every minute I feel watched or tested or graded. She spread her fingers like the weight of that word sat on each knuckle. You are not the only one in pain here, I snapped before I stopped myself. Her head jerked up, eyes flashed, the therapist raised one palm between us. We are not doing winner and loser, the therapist warned, tone steady. Either the hurt gets shared or it rots everything quietly. In the car afterward, the fight finally broke loose without witnesses. So I am just the villain forever, she hurled across the console. You get to punish me for the rest of our lives. Her hands gripped the steering wheel even though we were still parked. I laughed, that ugly short laugh that tastes like metal in your mouth. You slept with someone else in a hotel while our kids counted down, I shot back. You do not get to lecture me about duration. The air in the car went thick and bitter, and we both stared straight ahead. That night she brought me the lab results from her checkup without me asking. All clear, no infections, nothing that would wreck our health. She laid the papers on the table and pulled her hands back sharply. I know this does not fix anything, she said, eyes glassy, but I owed you proof. I folded the results and placed them in a drawer like some strange trophy. Not because I wanted to keep them, but because throwing them away felt dishonest. They became part of the file I never planned to build on my own house. Every time I opened that drawer, I remembered the clinic line in her old story. There were quiet good days mixed into that year which still mess with my head. Sunday afternoons where we actually talked without circling the same wound. We cooked together, we helped with homework, we fell into old rhythms. Then my brain would flash the hotel chat, and the warmth in my chest flipped cold. At a school performance, we sat shoulder to shoulder in the overstuffed rows. Our daughter spotted us and waved so hard her whole arm shook. My wife grabbed my hand on instinct when the lights dropped for the next act. I let her keep it there and wondered if every other parent could smell our mess. Back home that night, our son cornered me in the hallway. You and Mom are not getting divorced, right? He asked, staring at my shoes. The word landed like a brick I had to catch with my teeth. I told him no, even though in my head it sounded like a wish, not a promise. Months in, the therapist started pushing me harder than her, which surprised me. She asked why I checked her phone when I had full access. I admitted I still went through it when my wife slept or showered. The therapist asked if I wanted a partner or a prisoner, and it stung. I left that session furious at both of them and at myself. On the drive home, I gripped the wheel until my fingers went numb. I am trying to protect myself, I barked when my wife tried to talk. She stared out the window and whispered that she understood why I did not trust her. Here is the part where I have to be honest about being ugly too. Some nights I used the affair like a blunt weapon in smaller arguments. Late, tired about nothing important, and I would drop it on the table. I watched the light leave her face each time and still did it a few more times. One evening she planned this ridiculous do-over New Year in the living room. Middle of summer, windows open, kids bouncing around in pajamas. She printed a countdown clock from online and taped it to the wall. We paused a movie at pretend midnight and shouted numbers together just like before. When the fake clock hit 0, our daughter blew a party horn in my ear. My wife raised a glass of soda and looked straight at me. To second chances, she said, voice shaking just enough for only me to notice. My heart squeezed hard because I knew exactly what she was asking me for. After the kids passed out from all the sugar and excitement, we stayed up. The house felt weirdly still, like the air was waiting with us. She sat on the edge of the couch, elbows on her knees, staring at her hands. If you never forgive me for real, you should tell me, she said quietly. I took a long breath and actually listened to my own pulse. I thought about custody meetings and separate holidays and empty beds. I thought about our son in that hallway and our daughter watching the stage. I thought about the hotel screenshots sitting in my phone like landmines. I do not know how to forget it, I told her, choosing each word slow. But I am tired of living inside that night and nothing else. My throat tightened and I pushed through it anyway. I am going to try to forgive you, not just say the words. She looked up so fast I heard her neck crack a little. You are not just saying that to keep the house standing, she asked. Her lips trembled and she pressed them together to stop it. I told her no, and in that moment I almost believed myself. She broke then, but softer than the first time at the table. She slid across the cushions and wrapped herself around me like someone drowning. Thank you, she kept repeating into my shoulder, voice muffled and hoarse. I held her tight and felt this strange mix of comfort and resentment swirling. Later that night, we went to bed in the same room on purpose. No guest mattress, no edge of the frame, no awkward distance. We lay there in the dark, not touching at first, just breathing. Then she reached for my hand under the blanket, and I let our fingers lock. I wish I could tell you that moment reset everything and cleaned it up. What actually happened is more complicated and way less satisfying. On good days, that sentence gave me something to stand on. On bad days, it felt like a costume I put on so the kids would not see the cracks. For a while, the word forgiven floated between us like a fragile truce. She brought more effort and I brought fewer accusations, and it almost looked normal. We laughed again, we watched shows again, we sent dumb memes again. Under all that, a small, quiet part of me kept its guard up and waited. Her location pin jumped across town and my fork stopped. Halfway. 1 second she was at the office, the next she was near that hotel strip. The kids were arguing about fries while I stared at my phone. She was supposed to be at a late staff meeting, safety training or something. I zoomed in and watched the little dot settle on a cocktail bar. Not a chain, not a random place, the one across from his building. My throat went dry in an instant, everything else in the restaurant blurred. Dad, you good? Our son asked, waving a fry in front of my face. Yeah, keep eating, I muttered, eyes locked on the map. Her last text read, running late, don't wait up for dinner. I stared at the timestamp and then at the bar name again. Every excuse I had practiced for a year suddenly felt ridiculous. I could have called right then and blown it up live. Instead, I hit the screenshot buttons with a shaky thumb. The map saved, the notification saved, the whole thing frozen on my screen. My heart hammered so loud I barely heard the kids talking. On the drive home, I kept checking the app at red lights. Her dot didn't move for a full 40 minutes, anchored at that lounge. Then it slid toward downtown, then back toward our side of town. She never once texted to say plans changed or the training got moved. By the time her key hit the lock, I was waiting in the hallway. The kids were in their rooms, door cracked, cartoons still playing. She walked in with that tired smile she used after long days. Hey, that meeting went forever, I am wiped. I held my phone up between us before she could reach for me. You sure you were at a meeting? I asked, voice low and flat. The map glowed on the screen with the little bar logo and time. Her smile died so fast it felt like watching a light switch. She stepped closer and squinted at the image, face tightening. That is not what it looks like, she started, one hand in the air. I almost laughed, honestly, because even the script was recycled. Try again, I answered, thumb tapping the zoom so the name enlarged. Her shoulders dropped and she leaned against the wall like her legs wobbled. Okay, I met him there, she admitted, breath coming out in a rush. For a drink, just one, I needed to end it face to face. She pushed her hair back, eyes already shiny, waiting for impact. You met your affair partner in a bar across from his office, I said. At night, without telling me, after a year of therapy rules. I kept my tone steady, which honestly scared me more than yelling. Do you hear how that sounds when I say it out loud? It was closure, she insisted, stepping toward me with both hands open. He reached out through a coworker, I shut it down, then I panicked. Words tumbled out of her like they were trying to outrun the truth. I wanted to say my own final piece and never see him again. You already had closure, I snapped, finally feeling heat behind my ribs. You had months of sneaking and a hotel on a holiday and a confession. I waved the phone toward the kitchen like the proof lived everywhere now. What extra line did you need so badly you hid it from me? She dragged in a breath and let it out slow, eyes red. You never looked at me the same after we started counseling, she whispered. I felt like a project, not a partner, like I was always on trial. She laughed once, humorless. He made contact and I wanted to feel powerful again. Hearing that knocked me sideways more than the bar location did. So your answer to feeling judged was meeting him behind my back, I asked. My voice shook now, not from fear, from this exhausted kind of fury. You had every chance to bring it into therapy, and you chose secrets. She flinched and glanced toward the kids' rooms like the walls might vanish. I knew you would react exactly like this, she whispered, jaw clenching hard. You would lose your mind, call the lawyer, blow everything up. Her eyes filled. I did not want one mistake to erase all our work. This is not a new mistake, I shot back, stepping closer until we almost collided. This is the same pattern with nicer clothes and different drinks. I pointed at the phone again, hands shaking. You lied about where you were. I swallowed, throat burning, again. She reached out and wrapped her fingers around my wrist, grip tight. I did not sleep with him, she said, words sharp and urgent. I swear on the kids, on everything, I did not touch him. Her grip softened. We talked, we cried, he walked one way and I left. I believed the physical part, and that almost made it worse. Because it meant she risked all this for emotional junk, not just lust. You weren't going to tell me though, I pressed, pulling my arm free. If that app didn't ping, you'd come home and hug me like nothing happened. Her face crumpled for a second, then smoothed like she forced control. I was going to tell you in therapy, she answered, using that calm voice. When we had a mediator, when things were not so raw. She looked straight at me. I just needed some time to find the words. That is the same excuse you used the night you confessed, I reminded her. Needed time, needed the right moment, needed cushions. I laughed once, short and ugly. The only time you move fast is toward him. Even saying that out loud made my stomach flip. A floorboard creaked and we both turned toward the hallway. Our son peered around the corner, eyes wide, shoulders up. You fighting again? He asked, voice small and already tired. I forced my features neutral while my insides spun. We are talking about grown-up stuff, I answered, forcing a calm tone. Hop back in bed, I will come say goodnight again in a minute. He studied both of us for a beat that felt too long. Okay, he muttered, disappearing down the hall like he carried 10 years more. We stood in the same spot until his door clicked shut again. My wife wiped her cheek with the heel of her hand, breathing uneven. This does not have to be the end, she said, voice rough and low. We made progress, you said you forgave me, we can rebuild from this. There is nothing left to rebuild on, I answered, the words landing solid. I spent a year trying to make my head match my promise. I tapped my chest. In here I have been bracing for the next hit. I lifted the phone. Tonight was exactly that hit. She shook her head slowly like she could undo the evening through denial. You are overreacting, she whispered, then flinched at her own choice of word. Her hands flew up. I mean, it is not the same kind of betrayal. She swallowed hard. I was saying goodbye even if I did it the wrong way. Every time you minimize it I feel more done, I answered, voice steady again. You gambled with my sanity for a drink and a speech. I could hear my pulse in my ears as I took a breath. I am calling an attorney tomorrow. I am not threatening, I am informing you. The way her knees buckled told me she finally believed me. She grabbed the edge of the entry table, knuckles pale, mouth open. No, she whispered, then louder, no, we have kids, we have history. She stepped toward me again like distance was the real enemy here. We also have a night in a hotel I will never unsee, I said. And a bar meetup you hid until your phone betrayed you. I backed up a little, palms out. I cannot keep living inside this game. My chest ached, but the decision itself felt strangely clear. The next morning I sat across from a lawyer who had heard it all before. I laid out the timelines, the cheating, the counseling, the bar, everything. He asked if I was sure this was the line, and I told him yes. My voice cracked on that word, but I did not walk it back. Paperwork came next, stacks that spelled out the end in stiff language. Custody schedules, asset splits, boring terms that still sliced deep. I initialed and signed and wrote my name more times than I can count. Each signature felt like closing a door I used to lean against. Telling the kids made every other fight look like a warm-up. We sat them on the couch, one on each side, TV off. My wife started crying before a single word came out, and that set the tone. I had to speak because someone had to keep the room upright. Mom and I are going to live in different houses, I told them. It is not because of you, it is not your fault, not even 1%. Our daughter burst first, full body sobs, hands over her face. Our son stared at me like I had betrayed some silent promise. Are you divorcing? He forced out, jaw clenched, eyes wet but angry. Yes, I answered, because lying there would have been worse. We will both still be at your games and shows and all of that. The words felt thin next to their reactions, like cardboard shields in a storm. After that, everything shifted into these new rhythms that still feel wrong. Weeks where they sleep at my place, weeks where they stay with her. Handoffs in parking lots with backpacks and quick updates about school. Little waves through windows as one car pulls away and the other waits. Holidays turned into negotiations instead of automatic traditions. Thanksgiving with me one year, with her the next, never together. I watched my parents try to act normal at separate gatherings. They hugged the kids too long and avoided asking how I was doing. The first December in my apartment nearly broke me. The living room tree was smaller, the ornaments mismatched, the silence heavier. I strung lights with the kids and pretended not to notice who was missing. When they left with their mom for her week, the place felt like a set. On New Year's Eve, I did not bother with parties or downtown crowds. I stretched out on the couch alone, TV volume low, remote in my hand. The broadcast ran the same script, people cheering, couples kissing at midnight. I watched the countdown with no one next to me and no kids climbing my lap. My phone buzzed around 11:40. With a picture from my wife. The kids on her couch, goofy glasses, their arms thrown up mid-cheer. They were smiling genuinely, and that hurt and soothed me at the same time. Under the photo she wrote, "They wanted you to see their practice run." I stared at that image for a long minute, chest tight. Then I hit video call and the three of them popped up on the screen. Hey, I forced a grin, look at this wild crew. They shouted over each other until my ears rang in the best possible way. We counted down together on FaceTime an hour later, just us three. Their voices echoed through my empty place, bright and off-key and perfect. When the clock on my wall hit midnight, they cheered and blew party horns. The screen froze for a second on their laughing faces before the call dropped. After the silence rushed back in, I opened this app and started typing. I wrote the title and then everything you just heard from me. Now I am staring at this box wondering what strangers will say. Did I finally protect myself, or did I walk away from something fixable?